We're broadcasting from the Middle Tennessee Electric Studios.
Visit mte.com.
Middle Tennessee Electric, serving to make life better since 1936.
This is a WGNS Action Line. Talking with Rutherford County newsmakers
since 1947.
This is a WGNS Action Line. Now your host, Scott Walker.
You're tuned to WGNS, and joining us in studio live this morning, we have got Murfreesboro Mayor Shane McFarland. How are you this morning?
What's happening, Scott?
Not much. It's starting to get a little humid out there.
Yeah, man, I was walking with Ashley and the dog this morning. We both were talking about, it's we're starting to get into the summer weather now.
Yeah. I think I read heat index values up to like 101 or something like that.
Yeah.
That's not very comfortable.
Got to take the dog early. He doesn't like those late afternoon walks.
I'm sure I don't either.
No, I get it.
So what all is happening in the city? Other than budget, because I know we talked a little bit about that last time.
Yeah, budget's done. No tax increase. The city, we're going on one tax increase in over 30 years that we've had. So it's a pretty good track record. It's getting tougher and tougher every year, but we've got a good team who's working on it. But I tell you something, I'm doing a Facebook Live with everyone, do those routinely. But I gave an update, I think it was Friday maybe, but we had council on Thursday night. We had 3 significant projects that came to us. One, Clarius out on Broad Street. That's a tech and industry park on the Horde farm out there that Miss Horde, she was sitting in the audience, brought through, and that was approved, and there's a lot of good discussion on that. The new Kroger on Memorial that we had deferred about a month ago, that came back, so lots of good discussion, and happy to talk about all the improvements with that. And then lastly, a new emergency room that Ascension brought through on Las Casas Highway next to Murfreesboro Medical Clinic, the new building that I think they're having a grand opening on maybe today or Thursday, that they're having their ribbon cutting and grand opening. So lots of good things that were happening. That was a big night, and there's some significant things happening in Murfreesboro. And, Scott, the other part too is you end up talking about growth with all of that. And something that we talk through is how that we manage growth in regards to rooftops. So, for example, all 3 of these projects, we don't have to educate people who are going to these projects. I mean, there's no the traffic and transportation portion. There's significant infrastructure investments that the developer's paying for, not the taxpayer. No apartments. I look back because we always get this talk about apartments, and I went back and looked at the data, and over the last 5 years, I think apartment growth is like 1.2%. So, we're averaging, I want to say it's 150 units over the last 5 years, and the majority of those, well, really all of them, have been in the Gateway area where young professionals want to live, to be able to walk or get on the interstate. So those are a lot of the things. One of the things I think is just getting the word out on actually what's happening inside the city. And then on top of that, went through and added up, I think over the last 10 years, we are close to $750 million. That's a B of infrastructure and road improvements inside the city of Murfreesboro.
That's being done right now?
Yes, well, over the last 10-year period, but that includes state projects as well that we fight for. So that, that's Highway 99, that's the 96 widening, that's the bridge over Broad, for example. I mean, I would say it's a lot closer to $1 billion than it is $750 million. So those are the things that we, continually are trying to get the word out of, like, hey, the roads that you're traveling on every day that are congested, we are working with our state partners to address a lot of that.
Yeah.
But that's lots of good things happening.
Now, going to that tech park that you mentioned first on Broad Street, and you said that's the Horde property, I guess, right there near the intersection of 840 and Broad Street.
Yeah, so there's about 450 acres right there at Broad Street. And there's some context with that. A couple of years ago, I hadn't been involved in the discussions, but, I was asked to come to a meeting, and they roll out this plan for this 400 acres at 840. And I mean, man, it's like 1,000, 1,100 apartments, 2 or 3,000 residential units, and I just look at it and I squint my eyes and I'm like, I won't support that. And the reason why is because, that area, even though it's inside the city of Murfreesboro, there's really no services out there. So, for example, you think about this: where's someone going to drive to go get groceries?
Yeah.
They're either going to come back into Murfreesboro on Broad Street that's already heavily trafficked, or they're going to get on 840 and go to Medical Center Parkway, which is heavily trafficked, or they're going to do the exact opposite that we wouldn't want them to do. They're going to drive into Smyrna and spend their money in Smyrna. So the residential units that would be out there over an 8 or 10 year period, that's basically a school. And so I just, and I think the council agreed with this, is like, we don't want to see residential units out next to the interstate. And so that really restarted an entire discussion that the land use out there is for economic generating. And so this group came, and it's a tech park, no data centers. That was part of the zoning, that you can't put a data center out there, but it's job creation. And so, it makes sense to me that you would have more of the tech industrial that would be right next to the interstate, because none of that traffic is going to come back into Murfreesboro. It's going to get on the interstate and not go through town. And so the good part with that, and this was, Miss Horde wanted to sell her property. I mean, she's tried to sell the property for 6 or 8 years. That's where the sports park was going to go out there, and those people are in jail now. So, it was a good, I think, decision to say they're paying for the roads. So there's going to be a new road that's going to be built all the way going back around 840. They're paying for the infrastructure improvements. And then there's no schools that will be affected. There's no public transportation or public safety that will be affected. So I think it's a good process. Plus, they're going to pay to improve the 840 area right there with a new red light coming off of the interchange. So I think that would be beneficial. I mean, this going towards Smyrna, that is the weirdest interchange, because you've got someone getting off and then you're trying to merge on to go back on 840. So hopefully a lot of that will be improved.
Now, when you say a tech park, a tech center, what types of technology are we talking about?
Yeah, so if you look at what they have done in the past, there's a project that they did in South Carolina. So what they're doing is, they're building the infrastructure, they're building the buildings, and then they in turn lease those out to companies who want to come in. So when I say tech, like some of the facilities that they've got in South Carolina, which they compared, and it's really, they've got them in all over the country, medical, so like, for example, prescription or medical drug filling, where you've got more of a tech type deal where you're packaging. And so a lot of those things that will be good paying jobs, easy to be able to get to. And, at the same time, I think it's important, as we talk about affordability and we also talk about job creation, that people have the ability to be able to stay here in Murfreesboro. So, I mean, a good example, if you look at Schwann Cosmetics that's out on Joe B. Jackson Parkway, that's considered manufacturing, but it's mainly tech. I mean, it's a lot of robotics. It's a lot of those type of things. So I think that's what they're looking at to be able to do there. And
so that is going to be 840 and Broad, and then the Kroger store, of course, what you talked about a little while ago, that's going to be Memorial Boulevard, a much larger Kroger.
Yeah, and there's a lot of discussion that the Kroger store on Iron Gate has been there 30 years. We met with the Kroger people, and they're like, look, we can't shut our store down to remodel the store. And the models of grocery stores have changed over the last 30 years, where you don't really see grocery stores that are being built that also have these lease spaces to the net, with them. And so that's not what they want to do. They want to build a grocery store. And so the first question we asked, well, what happens with, the existing facility? And they couldn't tell us the national user that's going in there, but they did say, look, we own that. We're not going to abandon that property. The example is the middle, that people will bring up is the Middle Tennessee Boulevard Kroger, and there's a little different situation in that one. But there's a whole corridor from across the street from State Farm that goes all the way back to Haynes Drive that's a bunch of undeveloped property on a 5-lane highway. And so when they initially came to us, drainage was the big issue because you've got Palmer Heights subdivision that's back behind there. That's a older county subdivision that the city took in years ago, but there's no sidewalks, there's no curb and gutter, it's all ditch line sections. But what happens, that property that's on Memorial drains all the way back to those people's backyard, and there's nothing really that could be done because the property's been vacant. So that was several of the homeowners at Regency Park and Palmer Heights had a lot of discussion. And so we went through and showed, and the council really wanted to get the information on this, an entire regional drainage section. So what happens now, the property where the Kroger is going to go, that property, as it rains right now, it just flows to the back of the property. It does nothing. Well, the new plan with the Kroger, they've got permeable pavers. The building was moved up almost, I think it was 60 or 70 feet. It's 300 feet, I think, from 337, 40 feet from the adjacent neighbors. There's retention on site. So any water that is, when it rains, it all goes into these two, what you would say, holding retention ponds, and they hold the water that's generated from that site. And then there's a controlled release on there. So instead of right now, when it rains, all of that water sheet flows back to the back of the property. Now it has to be held on site. And so that's done through permeable pavers, that's done through underground storage, and it's done through these retention ponds. So then once it gets to a point, then it will slowly release out. So, and you see that all over the city, that you can see where a development like this would come in and solve and fix the drainage. So the entire drainage system that we see going up Memorial, we went through and we incorporated to show how all of that property would go together and be able to fix Regency Park. Because right now, all the water from Memorial goes from Memorial all the way to the Hooper Bottom on Thompson Lane.
Wow.
That's how far all that goes. So we've been able to show through our drainage studies and engineering how that it can fix all that. And then the other part too, Scott, I mean, the new Kroger that's going to be coming in, I think that's, again, another way that it's a business that's coming in that we don't have to educate the people. It's no schools. The only argument is traffic, but the same people who are shopping at the Kroger right now are going to go to the Kroger that's over there. You're not going to drive from another part of town to come shop at the Kroger on Memorial when you've got how many other grocery stores that you're going to shop around your area. So I think the big question mark is what's going to go in the existing Iron Gate. But actually, to tell you how the process works, the council deferred it because we wanted more information. And by the time that it got deferred, the neighbors who were back behind the Kroger actually went from being very concerned to actually coming to the meeting to speak in support, to say, okay, we see this, we see how this will fix our issues.
Yeah. And I don't know, I'm sure you've noticed this. It seems like all grocery stores today, even though they're all very large, they feel like boutique type shops. They're a lot nicer than they used to be. They
are, but then the other part too, they're super nice because they've turned into a little bit of everything. But the other part too, they're set up, a portion of this Kroger is set up for online delivery, which most of them are not set up for now. Because, I mean, like us, I say this, I still go to the grocery store, but when Ashley orders stuff, we use Shipt to have it delivered.
That's a tough word to say on the radio.
Yeah. to deliver our groceries. Yeah. And so what you're seeing now is a lot of the people who are in there shopping are actually with third-party companies that are shopping for other people. And so I think that's one of the things that the existing Kroger was not set up to do either. And you're seeing Kroger, you're seeing Publix that now are doing their own, it's the Southern they're doing their own online delivery service. So there's a lot of that we have to be able to work through. But I mean, again, Kroger's paying for all the drainage improvements that the taxpayer's not having to pay for. They're paying for all the traffic and infrastructure that is being built, the turning lane that's going to be built. They're paying for all that. Yeah. And so I think that's something that, it's easy to get upset saying, why are they building another Kroger? Well, I try to look at it to say there's also a positive to that. They're coming back and they're investing, no telling how much on buying a site, building a site, but they're doing that because their existing store is not being able to service the demands of the community right now. And so we would be having a much different discussion if they were talking about shutting it down because no one's shopping there.
Yeah. And the other good news is they're talking about having another tenant inside their old space. So, I mean, more jobs there as well.
Yes.
By the way, if anybody would like to text in questions, our number is 615-893-1450. With us today, Murfreesboro Mayor Shane McFarland, and we do have a question here. It says, let's see, traffic complaints continue, I'm sure, on just about every corner. What road project do you believe will make the biggest difference over the next 2 years to 5 years?
I think there's several. It's hard just to put that on one spot. So I'm going to give you an entire corridor, Medical Center Parkway, and I think people have talked about like the landscaping that's been in the center of Medical Center Parkways being removed. So that's going to a 6-lane road, Medical Center Parkway. And a lot of people will ask, well, why don't you do that, initially? And I don't think 25 years ago that people thought that, hey, the growth on Medical Center Parkway would turn out being the growth that it currently is.
Isn't it wild? It's been 25 years.
Yeah, as before my time. But so I think Medical Center Parkway, getting that corridor is getting ready to be finished up, and then phase 3 will be started, which will go from the Fountains back to Broad Street. So I think that's a city project. When you start looking at another city project, I think Cherry Lane is going to be substantial. That is in the right-of-way acquisition phase right now. We've already been funded for the interchange. That's going to be substantial for people to be able to get from the east side of Murfreesboro all the way back to I-24. And then that's where Cherry Lane turns into the Stones Battle Parkway, where you'll have a new interchange. And we had a good discussion last week that we feel pretty confident that the interchange at I-24 and Stones Battle Parkway that will be coming. So that will connect the Blackman area to where, think about this now, someone that lives in that Almaville Blackman area that is not by the interstate, they now will be able to come to the interchange there and not have to drive through city. So I think that's a significant project. Old Fort Parkway, we've gotten funding for that in the 2030 TDOT plan. So, roughly 4 years from now, that Old Fort Parkway will be expanded 6 lanes from the bridge over Broad all the way back to I-24. So I think that's a significant project. Thompson Lane is starting third and fourth quarter of this year. That's a $160 million project, not including utility relocations that will widen that section from Siegel Road all the way back to Broad Street. So, I mean, we could go through the amount of road projects that we have and that are already funded, approved. The city is working to put, our money where our mouth is. We've on a state road, we've committed 50% of the construction costs for the widening of Memorial going all the way out to West Jefferson and East Jefferson Pike. So, I mean, we're going through, and I think that's the part that I hope people will understand. Like, look, I drive the same roads. Now, I do think that it's fair to say our roads are congested. I mean, they're tough in peak hours, so early in the morning, late in the afternoon. But like Saturday, I ordered a pizza and had it delivered to my office instead of my house. And so I made it from my house to downtown Murfreesboro in 7 minutes, and I did not break any traffic laws.
Yeah.
So there are times that, traffic is okay, but I get where people are. That's our number one complaint that we have. But I would say this, Scott, there are not many growing cities that you look across the state of Tennessee. And when I say Murfreesboro, Smyrna, Laverne, you look at Knoxville, Chattanooga, Clarksville. Clarksville's traffic is tough. But that's something that, the entire mid-state area is is dealing with. And I think that, and I know our delegation, our legislature is working on this. There's the last number that I was told that there's a $300 billion backlog at TDOT right now. And that funding is about $30 billion a year that they fund. So I think there's going to be some discussions on how do we get road projects done quicker, faster on the state level, and how do the municipalities participate in that. And in the city of Murfreesboro, we're here to be able to do that.
And so that Stones Battle Parkway interchange with I-840, TDOT hasn't officially approved it yet, but it's leaning that direction?
They have given us the location that, through lots of discussion over the last 3 or 4 years, they've given us the location where the interchange needs to be located.
So about where is that?
It is sort of north. Let me get my direct. Yeah, so it'd be northwest, the northwest side over on I don't want to say the Blackman area. It's almost the Almaville area. So a good part to think about, that when you pass 840 and before you get to going to Nashville, you get where there's a salt shack.
Yeah.
Where it's a little bit before that is where the interchange would be.
Okay. And we have another question or two here. This one's asking, some residents still seem concerned about the Rutherford County Library System Director who was hired and then gone a short time later. What can you tell taxpayers about why the situation unfolded as it did, and does the city still fund the library system the same as it did?
Yeah, the honest answer with that, we appoint, and this, I sent an email to a lady a while back about this. We have independent boards that are inside the city of Murfreesboro. The library board is a little different because that's set up by state statute. We appoint people to the board, and the city council, pretty much outside of that, is we don't have anything to do with it. Now we do fund. I think our number that we fund every year is about $1.2 million, and our funding has been the same. So I can't say, and I can't speak to the decision that was made on the library director. The city council's not involved in those discussions, nor have we had discussions with, or I can say I have had discussions with individual members. I mean, I think that's the part that we have over 250 or 300 people that serve in advisory boards to the city council. That board is a little different because it's very similar to the Murfreesboro Housing Authority. We appoint the people to those boards, but outside of that, it is a completely independent board. Now, for example, like the Water and Sewer Board in Murfreesboro, I'm using this as an example. They're an advisory board that they make decisions, and then they refer those decisions to the city council for ultimate approval, the ones that we have to approve. So, and I think our system works well that way, that you've got people who are focused on those individual roles. For example, the Parks and Recreation Commission, and they're I use this as an example. They're really with a scalpel. They're working on that one thing, where the city is really looking at an overall. The council's looking at an overall view of those individual departments.
Here's an interesting question. It says, my husband got transferred to an office in Murfreesboro, whereas we've been living in Nashville for the last 20 years. And I've heard you say before the taxes in Nashville are much higher, and I'm sure they mean property taxes. But it asks, can you give us a comparison if it's a $500,000 house, as an example, the tax there versus Murfreesboro?
Sure. Give me a second and I'll do that.
And it's interesting because, there was I'd say 10 to 15 years ago, you would hear a $500,000 house and you're like, wow, man, you must be rich.
Yeah.
But a $500,000 house today is much different than one 10 to 20 years ago. It's wild how things have changed so much.
Yeah. I mean, our tax rate, so here's a good example. And I'm using our tax rate in Murfreesboro. We're about 93 cents. So the average annual, for a rough comparison on a $500,000 home in Murfreesboro, you're about $2,300 for a $500,000 home, and you're $3,600 a year in Nashville.
Now, does that include the county and the city taxes?
I think that's both combined. Yeah.
So about $1,000 difference on that same price of the house.
So Rutherford County, you're 23. Yeah, that includes. Yeah, that's about both. So, and I'm using ChatGPT to do this. So, and I did this in about a minute. So that would want to confirm that. But that's I think that's a pretty rough number. I mean, we're at 94 cents. So on a $500,000 house. Let me do the math here real quick.
But, I remember very clearly, it was during the COVID period that the mayor of Nashville at the time, no longer the mayor, but that mayor raised property taxes right there when COVID hit after. I think it was 6 months into COVID, and people were telling them, don't do this. And they did it. Yeah.
So $1,187 would be the taxes for a $500,000 house in the city of Murfreesboro.
Okay.
So the county, that should be about right, $2,400. And again, I could be standing corrected. I'm doing this on my phone just from memory.
So
Mayor O'Connell, I think they raised taxes here recently 40%.
Wow.
And I mean, so
that's a lot.
But here's the part you have to talk about. Like and I think this is important to note. So we'll get criticized that, hey, you haven't raised taxes, but you've raised your solid waste fee, for example. But the part I think that people have to understand also, there's over 50% of the people who are in our community who do not use our trash service. So if we raise your taxes, for example, for trash service, all of the people who live in retirement communities, all of the people who live in, for example, like a development where you may have like a duplex. Now I say a duplex, but like
townhomes with
a townhome, or like I use these as an example, like Forest Oaks, for example, that's been around forever. They do not get city trash service. Those are paid for by private people because we can't get in and out of there.
Like through the HOA.
Correct, the HOA. So there's a lot of developments in Murfreesboro that have private streets that we don't pick trash up. And so the argument is it's not really, or the other part on that, every commercial business in Murfreesboro, we do not provide trash service for those commercial businesses. So when taxes are raised on those businesses, you're really raising taxes on them for a service that they do not get, which is not real fair. So I think that's where the council had made the determination, and we put out a 10-year plan to say this is where our solid waste fee is now, and this is where our solid waste fee is going. And I would say that too, our solid waste fee is half of what you would pay in the private sector.
Yeah.
If you would go to XYZ company who comes and picks your trash up, I mean, we're still half of that number. So extremely efficient. We pick up 66,000 cans a week. And that's the part where, it's easy. You'll have the Republic Industries, or say Republic, you'll have whatever waste industry that will go, the city of Murfreesboro is charging you for your trash service. And we are. But think about this, for $4, $3 a week, that's how much you're paying for somebody to come pick your trash up.
Yeah.
And we've got to get into recycling. I think once we get this landfill issue situated, the recycling is going to be a big portion of how we do that with our residents, how we were able to save waste, but we do that through a more environmental way. But we've got to get these other things situated as well.
Again, with us this morning, Murfreesboro Mayor Shane McFarland. And if you have any questions, feel free to text those in at 615-893-1450. We're going to take a short break, and then we will be right back. Again, our number is 615-893-1450.
Hi, this is Amanda from Animal City, inviting you to come do business with our family. We are delighted to have just celebrated our 35th anniversary, and that is all thanks to you, our wonderful customers. We are pet lovers too, and we personally select every treat and toy, ensuring it's the same quality that we give our own pets. Stop by Animal City and get the best quality pet gear in town. Animal City is at 919 Northwest Broad Street in Murfreesboro.
At the Garden Patch Thrift Shop on Spring Street, we believe in more than just great deals. Every purchase you make helps Greenhouse Ministry serve over 70 families a day, offering hope and changing lives in our community. From name brand clothing to household items or even large appliances, you'll find everything you need at prices that will fit your budget. Plus, 100% of the proceeds go back to the ministry. Visit the Garden Patch Thrift Shop today across from the tall NHC building in downtown Murfreesboro, where shopping changes lives.
No middlemen, no mystery, just fresh big produce, straight from the Tennessee dirt to your dinner table.
Rutherford County Farmers Market,
where our family feeds your family.
There's something fresh every week.
Open Friday 8 to noon, Tuesday 7 to noon or 2 to 7.
The Action Line on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at WGNSradio.com.
You're tuned to WGNS, and again, in studio with us this morning, Murfreesboro Mayor Shane McFarland. And if you have any questions, feel free to text those in, 615-893-1450. Here's somebody asking, do you ever foresee red light cameras coming back into the picture?
I don't. No. I'm sorry to be so quick about that.
No, I like that. That's good.
Yeah, I don't. There's been a lot of discussion on these LPR the cameras, and I'm interested that we're going to get the data out. But I was talking with our city manager and the police department. Our property, and I want to say this correctly, car theft, for example, we're down almost 50% from where we were last year.
Wow.
And a significant portion of that is because of the LPR cameras. So there's a group out there right now that, we're talking about us, how these violate your constitutional rights. And look, I think the city council is very, very concerned and really diligent to make sure that we're not doing anything that we shouldn't be doing. City council does not have access to these cameras. There's no one that's sitting watching to see when you come home. That's just not the case. I mean, these things are used for when someone calls in and says, my car has been stolen. It is a black Toyota Tundra. Here's the location. Here's the time it went missing. They can go and use these camera systems and the license plate that you have to be able to track your car. At the same time, the amount of homicide, I know personally of 2 homicides that were solved or apprehended. The assailant was apprehended because of being able to find them through this system. The drive-by shooting that happened on I-840 in the Smyrna-Laverne area, LPR cameras solved that. So, I think with anything, you have to be very diligent to make sure that no one's constitutional rights are being violated. At the same time, I do think that there's a significant portion of our community that says, as long as these are being used to keep bad people off the streets, which that is 100% what the city of, I can't speak to any other organization. I can speak to the city of Murfreesboro, and I can speak to the leadership and the people that we have in our police department. They are getting bad people off the streets when they commit crimes. And I think that is, I say this, if my son was involved in a hit and run where they were injured, I want the police to be able to do everything they can to apprehend that person, because it could happen not only to them but to someone else. So, for example, a drunk driver hits someone and then leaves off. The ability to be able to, you have to be at the right place at the right time to be able to catch that person otherwise. And so, to me, and man, I say this routinely. I think sometimes politics and political discussions sometimes get devoid of common sense. And I think this is a common sense issue where people who are in our community are like, okay, look, the kids who were coming from Nashville that were going and robbing people's houses by the interstate, breaking in their cars, and they're standing with an AK-47 in the driveway. Hey, I want them off the streets and not be able to do that. And that's a great example of how those kids were caught using the LPR system to be able to say, you're not doing that in Murfreesboro. And I do think criminals will go to where there's the path of least resistance. And if they know that they come to Murfreesboro and they're going to get caught, they don't come to Murfreesboro. And so I think that's something that the city council, we continue with the transparency portal with these cameras. We've implemented that. We've done everything that we can do to make sure that no one's constitutional rights are being violated, but at the same time that we protect the residents in our community.
You know, it's interesting. I'm curious what's going to happen with crime 5 to 10 years from now, because the Murfreesboro Police Department, they're also trying out the new program with the DNA testing kits that are the portable testers, you know, where they can go out and if somebody broke into somebody's vehicle, they can literally check DNA of a broken in vehicle, you know, which was unheard of.
Yeah, and
even
I mean,
2 years ago.
My pastor has said this multiple times. I mean, do you want to go to an emergency room that was built 20 years ago, or do you want to go to an emergency room to get medical service on a current emergency room? And so I think that you have to always be prepared to make sure that someone's constitutional rights are not being violated, and we take that very seriously. But at the same time, if there's a technology that comes into place that allows us to keep bad people off the streets when they do something bad, and I mean, I think that's the point, to be able to say, Scott, we're not anticipating someone creating a crime. These things are only used when a crime has been committed.
Yeah.
So, you know, in my mind, once you hit someone and you try to run off, well, then you broke the law. And so if there is someone that was the victim to that, then I think that person would say, use whatever legally, whatever necessary means you can to make sure that that person is apprehended, one, for what they've done, but what they could do in the future.
Yeah, I agree. Had another question here asking, is the city prepared financially if the economy slows down and growth suddenly cools off? I know a lot of areas have seen that. I don't think we've really seen that, but what does happen in those situations?
Well, I mean, we budget very conservatively. I mean, you look at where we are budget-wise, our tax rate it's as low as it's been since I've ever been on council. And I think with the reappraisal that will come out, you know, we have to equalize the tax rate, so we can't charge people more for these reappraisals. But I think we'll be down in the 60-cent range when we end up getting that. I mean, the thing that we've been able to, this is what I would say, and again, I think it's one of those common sense issues. We cannot have a low tax rate, and we 56 or 57% of our overall budget now is on sales tax. So the Kroger that's coming in, the Buc-ee's that's coming in, all of these businesses that come in that supplement not only the city budget, they supplement the county budget as well. We can't have none of those businesses and have a low tax rate. The two don't go together. And so I think what we are trying to do is minimize the amount of growth that's coming in on rooftops and maximize the growth that's coming in on these commercial businesses where people want to come in and open their business in Murfreesboro. And so I think it's a mix. Now, with that on the question, our fund balance, and it's a catch-22. I mean, Scott, you don't want to tout that you've got this huge fund balance, because ultimately, and a fund balance is basically a savings account. You don't want to say that you've got this huge fund balance because ultimately that's not our money. That's taxpayers' money. And so, I mean, our unassigned fund balance, I think, is about $70 million. Our overall fund balance is about $115 million. I think that number was over six if the economy stopped right now, which I don't think anyone could see that no tax revenue would come in. I think we're at like a 6 or 7 month operating budget that we could run the city for 7 months, 8 months, just out of cash. And so here's the other part too, Scott, that's important. We're using that fund balance to build projects, build roads, build those things that we don't have to borrow money. So not only are we saving in debt service, we're able to get projects done inside the city and pay cash for it, which is a good spot to be in.
Definitely. Again, with us this morning, Murfreesboro Mayor Shane McFarland. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Yeah, anytime, Scott.
We're already out of time.
Hey,
it goes back quick.
We'll have to do it again.
That's right.
See you, bye.
Stay with us. 9 o'clock right now, and you're tuned to WGNS Murfreesboro, and local news, along with news around the country and around the world, comes your way next.